Hey, this is Steffen. The version 9 of Global TrendLines will have so many new features, even already now in the pre-release that I sent you, that I record a video to show you the new features. So I just prepared a new chart here, nothing special. And the pre-release is called _ Global TrendLines. So you can basically switch between the version 8 and the pre-release of the version 9. And right here in the inputs, we have a lot of new things. I made every drawing object type its separate input with separate filters. Gives you more control. So you can use different filters for different drawing objects. And then I added new drawing objects. That's basically all the drawing objects that TradeStation allows me to access from the code. So we have now horizontal line, trend lines, vertical lines, rectangles, texts, ellipses, and the Fibonacci, of course, that comes from version 8. Another new input is the show sidebar. That's turned to true, but I will talk more about that in a bit. And the sidebar theme, you can choose between light and dark or make your own, but more to that also in a bit. And then the data path that has been default in the past. I made it now an input, so you have more control. I use that, for example, to write it on the OneDrive in the cloud, and then you can basically set the same path on a second computer and replicate across computers basically with that. You can leave the default if you don't want to tinker around with it. There's just two wildcards. Add user will use your Windows username, and add name is the name of the indicator. I will just leave that as default. You don't need to change that if you don't have to. And now we get this little sidebar here. That means every new drawing object we will add now. Let me actually turn on the sidebar here. So every new drawing object that we put on the chart will now go into this list. And we have like a little symbol, then the color, and every drawing object gets like a generated default name. Let's put an ellipsis, whatever I forgot, the vertical line. There I had the filter set to solid, so we make that solid. Click on the line. Solid, and we give this one a different color. This one green. Make this fill color yellow. And then can also use text now. Test. Okay. So when you edit drawing objects, but that's nothing new, that was already in version 8 like this, but you get this little pop-up that asks you, it basically tells you that the drawing object belongs to an indicator, and if you click yes, it will open the inputs of the indicator. If you press no, you get the normal formatting settings for text, for line, whatever you clicked on. So I want to make this a little bit bigger. All right, there we go. So now we have all these drawing objects in the sidebar. First thing that what you can do is you can hold Shift, Control, and Alt at the same time and click on the chart. That's like a way to hide the bar. And then if you do the same, it will come back. You can also collapse it here, then it will just be like very small with a little button to expand it again. You can change the size here. There is a default dock in the XML. You can change that if you want to have it on the left side of the screen, for example, or you could even dock it on the top or have it free floating. But the default setting for now is that it's docked to the right side. For performance reasons, now if you start the indicator, it takes a short moment because all the form needs to be created, etc., etc. And from version 8, I know that the global Fibonacci also adds to that. So if you want to be very quick, you can turn off the sidebar. So the sidebar will not be shown when you start the indicator. So if you would now change the symbol or so, it will be very quick in loading. And then, although the form does not exist right now, the sidebar, but if you then want to see it, you can still use the Shift Control Alt shortcut and click somewhere on the chart. And the first time it will take a little moment because it needs to be created first, right? But at least it gives you this initial boost. And then if you need it, you can turn it on still. So this input show sidebar is really an input for the initial setting. So when the chart is reloaded, will the sidebar be loaded immediately or not? And then, but you can always hide it or show it with the shortcut. Then for the theme, we have light and dark at the moment. That's dark. And the dark sidebar going to look like this. You can change all the colors and stuff in the XML. I'll show you that later. You can make your own themes, for example. But back to true, and we work with the light color scheme. Also, the color filter is changed to a string now. Before it was just the text. Now you need to use the double quotes. That is because I used the new color object. So you have basically more choices of colors, basically the ones that you see here, and even more. So now here you can organize the stuff. You can rename the drawing objects. You could say that's like daily support and assistance or something like that. Press this little thing. You can either press enter or press this little thing again. The second button in the toolbar is hiding and showing, and that is a setting that is only local. So you could hide something here, but it will not be hidden on other charts. So that's a local setting. The little lock symbol here is basically just a shortcut to access the lock from here. So when you lock an object, you cannot move it around anymore accidentally or so. Then the alerts, you can turn it on from here, will then be highlighted in orange. That will basically do the same as if you would go into the horizontal line to the alerts and enable it here. So it will not change anything with the settings. It will just turn it on and off. So it basically does that. But the nice thing is it gives you a little a note here that you can see, oh, there's an alert active. And this alert that you activate here is also not replicated to all other charts. That is because, let's say the price breaks out of a line or so, you don't want to have 12 alerts, right? Because you have 12 charts. So that's only for one chart. There is a setting that I will show later in the XML where you can turn that to global, so it will turn on the alerts on all the charts, but I don't see too much sense in that. The little trash can here is just deleting, so let's put another trend line here, and then you can click on there to delete it quickly. Before I forget it, you can click anywhere here. It will show you, basically, it will help you to find which line that is. So if you click here, it will have a little animation blinking a little bit. And the next button here is context sensitive. So depending what drawing object you're using, you have different options. You can open this little edit prices thing from here. You can scroll to, that's basically if you have like a lot of lines, and let's say some lines here on the chart, you can't find it or so, you can click here on scroll to, and the chart will scroll where this line is. Lines, we also have the extend left, extend right options. So if you click there, it just toggles on and off the extend. And that also works for the rectangle. That's something that TradeStation does not give you access to. But in the programming, you can access it. So that's one way I make it available to you. So you can now click here, extend left, right, and then you have the rectangle extend across the entire chart. And yeah, that's basically it for that button. I might add some more stuff for the version 9, for the final version 9, but not sure about that yet. And then we have a move to folder, a button here that only works obviously at the moment there are no folders, right? So what you can do now is you can create folders. So you could say that's my daily folder. And then you have a folder, and then you can move your drawing objects into this folder. So you put this two in there. When you click here, it will open and close the folder. You can set it as a default. That means if it's default, then every new drawing object you would add on a chart would automatically go into that folder. And of course, with the same button, you can remove it from a folder or move it to another folder if you have multiple folders. So let's just remove that. So now it's out again. This last column here gives you the option to influence the sorting of the objects. So let's say you put this one to 2. And there's no way for me to recognize now that I typed a 2. So you need to click somewhere else to make it activate. So now it goes, it's just ascending order, right? If you click here, it will immediately change, but since it's immediately changing position, it's sometimes hard to follow it. So let's say we want to have that at the back and put 23. You can also use negative numbers, so 0 or whatever you want. Okay, so now let's delete the line again. Another thing that I forgot to mention is the size of the sidebar is remembered. So if you restart the computer or you load another symbol or so, it will come up with the same width all the time. Then there's one more additional thing that we have for the folder. I have no options yet. Not sure exactly if I add something, probably yes. I have an idea, but in the pre-release there's nothing happening. If you click here, and here is something that I call display rules. So you can turn that on and set up comparison operator and a bar type, and that will set the default viewing for the whole folder. So if you have lines on the daily chart and you don't want them to be shown on anything lower, you could say greater or equal daily and press OK. Now you have like a little indication here. It's green in this case because that's a daily chart. And if we change that now to, let's say, 120-minute chart, then you will see it's red. It just by default turns off the visibility of these objects. You can still turn it on. It's just a default setting. Whenever the indicator is loaded, it will turn it off. But you can always override it from here if you want to see them still. Another new feature is that we see right now is the orange background of the drawing objects here. That means that they are out of the range of the chart. So that means they either start in a date that is before the data that you have here on the chart, or is beyond. So obviously this drawing objects cannot be plotted on a chart like this, right? That's something I got a lot of questions for in the past. But that will now be indicated with the orange color. So if you have that, you just need to, if you have an intraday chart, you will have to increase the data here either by years, months, days back, or bars back, first date, etc. And the same can actually also happen if you draw into the futures. So if you take a rectangle like this and you have like the end date is now on the 19th of March. If you change now to a 30-minute chart and you don't have the Windows settings, the space to the right so high that it includes the timestamp of the end of the rectangle, then it can also become orange because the drawing object is beyond the range of the chart. And then, yeah, if you click on a folder, it will just apply the option to all all the elements within the folder. That works for the lock and the visibility button here, little display icon. But it can also work for the delete. So if you press delete on a folder, it asks you if you want to delete the folder and all the drawing objects inside, or the folder only. If you delete the folder only, it will just remove the drawing objects from the folder and delete the folder. So now let's add a second chart here. And let's make this a weekly chart. And we add the indicator. Smaller here. Okay, now this is also green, right? But if we would decide, or let's say we make a new folder, call that weekly, and we create a drawing object on the weekly chart, say a rectangle, something like this. Make the fill color magenta. So now it's shown on the daily chart, right? But if we would put that rectangle into the weekly folder and set a rule that this should be active and it should only be shown on weekly charts, then we automatically filter the display from the daily chart. And we also see that the background on the daily chart becomes red. That just means that the display rule is not fulfilled on this chart. So if you would say you have a comparison like tick or volume bars, and that's obviously a daily chart or minute charts or weekly charts, they cannot be compared with each other. So if this is orange, that basically means that it's incompatible. And if it's incompatible, then by default, that means that the drawing objects will still be shown. But you can always turn them off here if you don't want to have them. As said, this setting is local for the chart. And if you turn off the indicator and turn it on, that's also all saved, but specifically for the chart. So it will always be off for this chart, but not for this one. You also see that in the footer, actually, there's like a little name here. That's the name of the group. That's basically the name from the group that you put here. And then you have a chart ID, right? So the chart ID is here 1 and here 2 will automatically increase when you put the indicator on new charts. But the display settings and a lot of other settings are related to the chart. And then there are 2 more tabs here, alerts. That's something that I have not implemented yet. I will need to do some testing even if I can do that, but I might add some alerts, and then you could have a list here with alerts for different symbols. They might deviate from the ones on the chart. The thing with TradeStation alerts is, now we have an alert for this horizontal line, I believe. Yeah. But if you change the symbol on the chart, you will never get the alert. Right? And here we might have a list where you have different symbols with their alerts, and as long as like you have at least this instance open, you could get the alerts for different symbols. But as said, I still need to test out if I can realize that. On the settings tab, you just have default settings for different drawing objects. So you could say the extent left for rectangles is true. Then whenever you draw a rectangle on the chart, it will be extended to the left side. I'm thinking and working on something that you could have default settings for a folder. So that's probably something I would go into this menu here. I'm still not sure about the implementation in detail. That's something I will work on next, but likely we will have something like this, but with much more options, that whenever you put a drawing object into this folder, it might take the default settings that you set up for this folder. But that's also something I still need to figure out. how to implement it best and then see if it works and stuff. So yeah, that's just something I tell you that because I would also be happy if you would tell me what other features would be great to add. And I tested this stuff now, but yeah, whenever you have an error, so let me know because I would like to fix that because before the big release, and then I send the indicator to all the people, and then it should be very robust, right? The default folder, by the way, is also per chart, right? So you could send it. It's turned on here, but here you don't have a default folder. So that's another thing that is local. What I have now implemented to replicate is basically all the settings that you have for a drawing object. The only thing that doesn't seem to work, it's coded actually, and it might suddenly start working on a TradeStation update, but the label attributes, they are also replicated already, but for some reason TradeStation does not allow me to replicate them. So I changed that now on the left chart, right? But on the right chart, nothing happened. When we restart the indicator, also doesn't load, right? So it's in the data. It might at some point suddenly start to work, but that's something that I figured is just not working, and that's basically true for all the labels that you have for vertical lines, horizontal lines, and trend lines. So now let's look at the XML quickly. You don't really have to touch it. It's like if you want to play around with it. So we have this settings XML that you know from before. Can basically ignore most of that. You could change these values, but you really don't have to because that's what you can access from here. And here are the themes. Here's the dock, by the way, if you want to change the docking. Let me know. I can tell you like which number means which. 4 just means it's docked to the right side of the chart. Here are the themes. There are the RGBA color codes. If you know what you do, you can like copy this and make your own theme. Just put it here, put a new name, and then that's the name you need to put in the inputs to access the theme. I would probably not advise to judge the default ones, but if you want to, you can do that. But yeah, you can change the stuff. You can go on Google and type RGBA in the numbers and then basically see what what color that is and what other colors the RGB values are. RGB actually is just like red, green, blue, and then this alpha value here is the opacity. But you can find that from Google. It's rather easy. So if you want to change like some of the display stuff, you can do that from here. You basically have access to the backgrounds. The foreground is the text color. The DO background means strong object background. That's like the background of each of these little rows here. And that's the background for inputs. So that's white in this case. Then the separator line is just this little line here. And then you have hover, success, warning, error. That's basically these colors here. That would be warning, success, error, and the blue one that you get when you go over these icons is the hover color. Then you can change what you want to see in this toolbar. So now there's like all the options. You can change the order. So if you would want the sort key for some reason here in the front, you could just move that whole thing here to the front of the list, something like this, and that would change the order of that. So now the sort key would appear here, etc. You can also remove some if you think that's too wide for whatever. If you want your sidebar only that size and you want to have the toolbar very compact, you can remove some of the buttons from here too. And that would be the alert replicate option to set the alerts on all the charts. So if you want that, you can type in true here, and then when you turn on the alert here, it will turn on also the alert on this chart, because here the strong object now, or horizontal line, it does not have an alert. This one has, right? If you turn that to true, then it would synchronize the alert settings basically all across the charts too. I think that's it. For now, let me know if you have questions and ideas, and if you encounter any errors, please let me know so I can fix them. Thank you very much, and goodbye.